Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Coast Connections. Are you looking for a really cool new hobby? Are you looking to help support kids? Well, we've got the show for you today. We've got kiteboarding for kids. And with us today is Dale Moffatt, kiteboarder extraordinaire from Port Alberni. Welcome, Dale.
Hello.
Yes, and this kiteboarding sport, it looks so exciting. I mean, it's such a, it looks like such a zen kind of sport when you're up there on your board and you've got your canopy above you. So let's get viewers pumped about this sport.
All
Let's
right.
talk a little bit about how you yourself came to be involved in kiteboarding.
Well, many years ago, I had a business out at Nitnet Lake, which is well known for, it was at that time windsurfing. And along came some people with these crazy pieces of gear and kites that flew through the air, and thought I needed to try that out, and went from there. Yes.
Very good. And kiteboarding for kids, or kiting for kids, was started by Ken Droog, who's a realtor here on the island, and I think that was 2013.
I believe
and you folks in Port Alberni have now sort of picked up the torch for that, and the next generation of it. So through the early years, they raised $20,000 for a children's hospital, which is fantastic.
It is.
You know, these ones that first got involved, you know, they had children or knew of children that had been affected by various medical conditions and knew just how important Children's Hospital was. So it's wonderful that the $20,000 was raised. And I understand you and your force there in Port Alberni are hoping to match that this summer with some exciting events that you have with kiteboarding.
That's right. We are. We're hoping. We have 3 events scheduled this summer throughout the early summer. 2 weeks from now, May 27th, mid-June, and then the July 1st long weekend, focusing on the 3 different disciplines that we can show in Port Alberni. Mm-hmm.
So Port Alberni is a perfect spot for kiteboarding because of the inlet, the channel there, and the winds and the mountains. It's one of the best places for wind in BC, despite what they say about the Parliament buildings.
Certainly, in the summertime, primarily, we do get thermal winds in Port Alberni. They tend to be an afternoon wind. There are some other locations on the island that do also get thermal winds. That would be Nitnet Lake and Nimkish Lake. Mm-hmm. They tend to be all day. Ours is an evening wind, so it's great for the working individual. So you can take advantage of that after work. And it's obviously quite warm in Port Alberni during the summer, so it's definitely a bonus.
Very good. Now, what age group would this appeal to, Dale?
Well, kiteboarding ranges, I've seen children as young as 10 years old, all the way up to, well, a fellow here in Nanaimo, he's in his 70s now, right? So there's very low limits to who can participate in the sport, whether you're an incredible fit athlete to just your average person like myself.
And how long would it go from like a novice like me who's never been on a kiteboard to actually getting out there? Would I be able to do that in an afternoon? Would it get some airtime like you are in some of these pictures?
Not in an afternoon. However, we have 3 very good schools now on the island that are available. And for the average person that has no knowledge, let's say, of the sport, 3 days is the average time a person from going from shore lessons to being on the water to being able to stand up on the board and go along the water, not necessarily riding back to where they started, but able to get out and start enjoying the sport. On average is about 3 days of lessons.
Okay. So show us and tell us about some of the gear that's involved in actually getting a kiteboard and having a kiteboard, using a kiteboard. So what have you brought here on set with us today, Dale?
Well, the first thing, actually, if I may, I didn't bring is a wetsuit or a dry suit.
Might be a little hot under these lights.
That's right. So you need to have personal gear of one form or another. In midsummer, you can go in shorts and shirt, but for the most part, it's a wetsuit or dry suit. So we have several pieces of gear: the harness, the barn lines, the kite itself, which is folded up. And then there's different styles of boards. This is just 2 types that I brought along today. The most integral part, of course, is the kite and the bar and the lines. This is what basically drive you, if you will, along the water. The harness is what we use to attach ourselves to that freight train. And the boards They vary in different styles. This is just your regular twin tip. That's a skim board. One of the newest forms of kiteboarding is foil boarding. And you can have boot style, or this is a strap style. So there's lots of different avenues that you can gear yourself out to enjoy the sport.
So what's foil boarding?
Foil boarding is basically, I don't really know how to describe it. It's a board, let's say like this or that, where they attach a big arm and then a foil on the bottom. And so when you ride along, you rise yourself up off of the surface of the water, and it rides on these little wings. It's
almost like an airfoil.
Basically,
like, yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And then it's used mostly right now for racing. And I believe they're looking at bringing it into the Olympics.
Wow. So is that for the more advanced kiteboarder, that they'd have a foil board, or would I be able to do that within 3 days too?
No.
No.
No, it would definitely take some practice, yes. A lot of balance. There's no straps. So, well, that's not true. There are some foil boards out there that have straps for sure. So, but you do need to have a pretty good control of the basics before you were to attempt.
If a person is a good surfer, or even amateur surfer, does kiteboarding come a little more naturally for them?
Yes, there's certainly other sports that complement. Snowboarding is another sport that transitions well with kiteboarding, because again, you're moving your body in such a manner, like going from heel edge to toe edge to heel edge, much like a kiteboard when you're turning. Surfing, yes, of course, tends to be a balance.
Yeah,
you know,
or paddleboarding.
Paddleboarding, for sure. Like most sports that require balance will certainly be helpful in your learning process.
Now, in your kit down there, you've got the canopy, which you said is 9 meters?
This one here is a 9-meter kite. There's many different sizes of kites. There's also different styles of kites now, depending on what you're wanting to do and what you learn on. Most people learn on what they call a bridled kite. And the different sizes address the different wind ranges.
Okay.
For instance, for me and my body size, which I'm a bigger guy, my 9 meters meant for higher winds. You know, I use that between 25 and 30 knots of wind, where someone much
30-knot wind, that's pretty strong.
Yeah,
to be kiteboarding
that's when it gets
in.
fun.
Yeah.
However, for someone that's much lighter than me, they would be able to use this canopy in less wind, right? It depends on who you are and also your riding style.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, which you will obviously hone over time.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, does it appeal more to men or women, or is it
No,
equal?
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Just people in general. Yes. In fact, there's been an absolute explosion of ladies' camps in the schools. So they hold these exclusive lady camps. We have in Port Alberni, Girl on a Board, who focuses a lot on that as well. And then Elevation Kiteboarding, I do believe, holds a number of those camps as well.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
So we talked a bit about a couple of the elements of kiteboarding, the foil boarding, the skim boarding. Was there another element?
Certainly, this here, there's several different types. There's freestyle, there's wake skates now, where guys go out with these little wake skates and their running shoes and play on the water. We have surf, where people go out, like for here locally, Chesterman's or Tofino, and they'll kiteboard in the waves with their surfboards. So there's many different styles now. You have wake style, which they'll put, like I say, the wakeboard boots on their board, and they'll do the rails and the ramps and what have you.
Would you go barefoot style on these kiteboards, or is that a bit too dangerous?
I don't know of anyone going barefoot.
Okay.
May have been done, but I'm unaware.
Very freestyle.
That would be very freestyle for sure.
Now, Dale, when that canopy or kite is inflated, how long does that take to get from, so compact like that into a 9-meter kite? Like, how long does that take to inflate?
Well, to inflate the kite's only a few minutes, not even. To take it from this to, let's say, getting ready to be on the water, maybe 10 minutes.
And what kind of material are those kites made of? Because they must take quite a beating.
Oh, you've asked me a good
Yeah.
question. I can't answer that
Some
actually
kind
now.
of, SpaceX, very hardy stuff. Because
I do know they're made with ripstop material, right, to
Yeah.
prevent tears and such. They're pretty durable.
do you have to patch yours very often? Or?
No.
No. Thank goodness.
I don't put mine on the water very often.
So tell us a bit about the events that are coming up. The first one, I think, is May 27th.
That's correct.
And that's the Great Foil Challenge.
The Great Foil Challenge. So because it's the beginning of our season, we typically will have lighter wind, and foil boarding takes advantage of that. They don't need heavy, strong wind because they're not dragging a board in the water. It's just that small fin. So we've decided to have a foil race. Anyone can show up. Welcome to. We encourage people to race the foils and see how well they can do upwind. And it's just a circuit, and it's 2 hours long. And how many times can you go from the bottom of Centennial Pier up to Polly's Point and back?
So it's not timed, it's just how many you can do?
It's a 2 hour event.
Okay.
And in 2 hours, how many laps can you do?
Uh-huh.
You know, and can you keep up with the foil boarders? Or who amongst the foil boarders do the best?
And about how many kiteboarders are you expecting at these events?
Well,
and I imagine they come from all over the province, from...
Well, we're certainly hoping that people travel to become a part of our event. At this moment, with the weather the way it's been a bit challenging. Everyone's still waiting for summer to show up. So I'm hoping that we can attract, between 15 to 20 riders per event. That would be fantastic, just to allow not only a fun, competitive spirit amongst themselves, but also great spectator sport as well, people to watch and enjoy.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons when kiteboarding for kids first started, they used to cross Georgia Strait or the Salish Sea as part of their fundraiser. But it's very difficult to have spectators when you're out in the middle of the strait.
That's right. As soon as they leave the beach, you pretty much lose sight of them. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And half the fun is watching other people enjoy your sport. So it's great that Port Alberni's brought this down to the harbor, the inlet, because it's also great for tourism, community development, and just to increase awareness about the sport itself. And at the same time, you're going to be having donations there for the Children's Hospital as well.
That's right. For two of the events, we're having a barbecue by donation. To help also raise additional funds. The other neat thing about Port Alberni that's unique to Port Alberni is with the Centennial Pier we have, it puts people right out into the middle of the water. And so the riders that are doing tricks and such can ride behind the pier. And so you're literally 5 to 10 feet away from these people doing their tricks and stuff. Where typically you're standing on shore, they're 100 to 200 feet away. So you really get that up close, and you can high five the little kids and all this other stuff as they're standing there. It's kind of fun.
What a great perspective.
It is.
Yes, that's it. Very exciting. Yeah.
So people really can associate with the sport a lot better because, when you're that close, you get a better understanding of what's going on, and you can interact.
Yeah, exactly. And you decide if you want to try it yourself. When you see it up that close, it could inspire others to get involved in the sport as well.
Yes,
So.
I believe we've inspired some new people to come out and about. Yeah.
Fabulous. Okay, so that's the May 27th one. Then on June 17th, kiting in costume.
Fighting in costume.
This has got to be a colorful event.
We're hoping, tastefully colorful, hopefully. This is just for the average rider that's able to come upwind, so they can get back to the launch dock, to show up and have fun. It's timed. I've timed each of these events to also coincide with some other events that are going on that day. For instance, the foil boarding we timed with what we call the AC/DC Challenge, which is a paddleboard race.
Okay.
The kiting in costume is the Port Authority's Family Days. So I thought, well, since there's going to be families and children around, it would be a lot of fun to have people out there in costumes and just being playful. And so that's the theme of that particular day. Just come out and have fun and enjoy yourselves.
Very nice. Yeah. So what kind of outrageous costumes are you expecting? Are you yourself going as Batman or anything?
Well, unfortunately, I am unable to kite at this time due to injuries. However, I am hoping people that do get creative and Superman, go up there and do some big jumps and fly and just, have fun. Batman, superheroes maybe, or Squamish holds an event called Kite-O-Ween which is
Kite
Halloween based. That's right, in the fall. And there's been some really neat costumes over there. So I'm hoping people bring those forward and come on over.
Sounds like fun.
I
A lot
think
of
so.
fun. Yeah. And then July 1st, the big Air and Freestyle Extravaganza.
Yes, and that's the most dynamic aspect of the sport that attracts most people is the big jumps and the tricks that people do while they're flying through the air. I've timed that to coincide with, of course, the July long weekend, but Port Alberni's also having their 150th celebrations that weekend. There's the Triconic Challenge, which is unique to Port Alberni. It's a competition, race the train, race the plane, and race the boat out to Bamfield. So we're going to be a lot of people there for that as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the town. So I thought with so many people around, it would be great to have some show on the water for people to enjoy as well. Again, attempting to fundraise.
Exactly.
All the same
yeah.
time.
All for a good cause.
That's
all
right.
for the kids.
That's
Love
right.
it. So how high can you get on these boards? Like what kind of air time do you get when you're out there, Dale? Like look at some of these shots. Like how high up are
Well, there are people out there now that are getting 60 feet plus.
Really?
It's crazy what some of these athletes can do. The average person will jump, anywhere from 10 to 25 feet,
Yeah.
which is substantial when you think about it. That's 2 stories of a building that you can reach,
Exactly.
right? There are some of us in Port Alberni that, hit 30 to 50 feet. So
Now, I'm sure you don't always come down as easy as you go up.
not always.
So, what are some of the safety aspects of the sport that people should be aware of? And again, getting in the proper training before you try kiteboarding itself.
Just be aware of your skill sets and be aware of your gear, I think is my biggest takeaways. And not be afraid to ditch your gear. If you've, let's say you've taken a big jump and you don't think you're going to land right,
Right.
what we call let go of the bar, basically, so that you lose power, and throw your board away so you don't land wrong and hurt your knees, stuff, ditch your gear, brace for impact, and survive to tell about it another day, ride away. Yeah.
Now, when you ditch your gear and you're ditching your kite, how easy is that to retrieve?
Again, through practice, quite easy. And this is all things that you practice over time. It's not something that you would just necessarily learn right away. But the gear is designed to be quite intuitive now to make it easy for the average person to enjoy, which is why the sport has exploded as it has, because it is accessible to most. You don't need to be the super athlete or the most smartest and skilled person, to pick it up.
If a person came down to the events this summer, could they rent gear from you, or do you need to come with your own gear?
No, there's no gear for rent. You won't find that anywhere unless you can show that you're a skilled kiteboarder. Due to the liabilities, it's again quite a dynamic sport. There's
Right.
lots of potentials that can go wrong. So if you do come to our event, please bring your own gear. There are schools available. If you have questions, they will be available during those events.
They'll be on site.
There's a couple of them that are going to be there. I know for sure during the cutting and costume. I'm hoping for also the freestyle big air. We'll have some schools on site to answer questions or sign people up. Or the kiting for costume, there will be also a trainer kite flying by donation.
Oh, good. Yeah. Now, the harness that you're wearing, does that also double as a life jacket?
No.
So kiteboarders don't wear life jackets?
Well, by marine standards, we're supposed to wear a lifesaver of some form or another, but most don't.
Okay.
No, it inhibits your movement, really, which in itself can become a risk and hazard because of the lines. The more snag points that you have on your body, because each line controls a certain direction of your kite.
How many lines are you controlling when you're up there boarding?
Well, the bar, this particular bar and kite that I have is a 5-line setup. So there's 4 lines. You have 2 steering lines, which are your rear lines, and you have 2 front lines, which control the pitch of the kite. And there are some that operate off the back lines, again, depending on brand and such. And then you have a fifth line that goes up the center, and that's your safety line, so that if you were to eject, that line holds the kite so it doesn't fly away, and it flips it and what we call depowers it, and it comes and lands on the water. And then if you're able to, you can collect your gear and sort it out and then relaunch the kite. Yeah. So you have the 5 lines. Mm-hmm.
And that takes a fair bit of skill to get to know which line is controlling which part of the kite and the canopy. But as you say, you know, a couple days in a course and you can become quite the kiteboard aficionado yourself.
That's right. Most people, like I say, get up and at least start riding on the board, right? And then from there, it's just depending on their own personal athleticism and motivation.
Yeah. So Dale, why do you kiteboard? We're looking at some of these shots of you, I might add, and it looks like you're really in your element. I mean, that looks really exhilarating and awesome. Why do you do it?
Well, it depends. It's peaceful for me. You get, life is so hectic, right? And there's stresses, whether it be health, whether it be financial, what it might be. This gives me that out, that ability to just be one with the wind and with myself, and just go to a nice place. And when you come off of it, you're ready for the next day, you know?
Nice.
Yeah, zen.
Yeah, very zen. It's almost like soul food.
It is.
Yeah.
For me, certainly.
Yeah. Being with the wind and the water and the elements.
That's right.
And plus, I mean, that's a really good workout. I mean, obviously, I mean, look at you got guns. You know, that builds a lot of muscle. It must be a whole body workout because your legs, everything, arms.
Well, certainly it's core strength.
Abs,
You don't have to be, like I said, you don't have to be this uber athlete, like you can tell by me, right? It's like anything, you can take it to whatever level you wish. So you can puddle along the water and just enjoy it for what it is, or you can take it to the extreme and jump large jumps and do crazy tricks in the air, or go surf these monster waves out in the middle of the ocean.
Now, do you do kiteboard all year? If you've got a wetsuit or a dry suit, are you out there all year, or is it more of a summer sport?
No, it's there's certainly individuals that here on the island kiteboard all year. If you have the gear and such, certainly. The summer winds, like for the thermal winds at Nimkish or Port Alberni, are certainly much gentler in the sense for people learning. Yes. The winter winds, the frontal winds, they tend to be much more powerful, what we call punchy, a lot of gusts, right? So you need to be a little more skilled to be kiteboarding safety.
And we might add too, at your events, there will be safety on hand. You're going to have St. John Ambulance on site.
We are in the midst right now of working with a number of the other events to make sure that we have emergency personnel on board. Being located right in town, we have the ambulance right there. So it's more a matter of water rescue.
Yes.
That's right. So if someone injures themselves on the water, which we have covered with a jet boat and a trained person, is what we're basically in the midst of organizing now.
Very good. And that'll all be set up, obviously, in time for your
big
3 events that are coming up. And you're hoping to raise $20,000.
That is our goal.
To match that. That's amazing. I'm sure Children's Hospital will be thrilled with that. And you're also just, building up interest in a new sport for people, something new they might want to try. As I said before, it's, encouraging some tourism, destination tourism in Port Alberni with the wind there. But yeah.
That's one of our focuses. Naturally, we want to encourage the Children's Hospital Foundation and the fundraising. But the other aspect of holding these events is to raise awareness that kiteboarding is available in Port Alberni for intermediate advanced kiteboarders. China Creek, which is just a short distance away, is much more friendlier to novice kiteboarders. But for the downtown area, if you will, it's more intermediate to advanced.
Yeah.
So it's also to promote and to make people aware that it's there.
Very good. And we look forward to hearing more about the events that are coming up after the fact. We might have you back on the show to talk a little bit about that. And good luck with your events this summer. I think it's going to be awesome if you reach your goal of $20,000. I'm sure you will. You've got some excellent barbecues happening there, some good food, good sports, and good for you for promoting this in your community for a really good cause to kiteboarding for kids. Good on you, Dale. I think that's awesome that you're bringing it to Port Alberni.
Thank you very much for having us.
You're very welcome. And thank you to our viewers for joining us on this edition of Coast Connections. As they say, you can't control the wind, but you can adjust the sails. And that's exactly what they're doing there at Kiteboarding for Kids. So get out there May 27th to Port Alberni and enjoy some of these exhilarating sports that they're going to be having. We'll see you next time on Coast Connections. Thank you, Dale. Nice job.